Hello, soulmates, and welcome back to another episode of Commander Abridged. Or if it's your first time joining us, you're going to want to lock in because we got a spicy one coming at you. We got a pretty sweet lineup here, so let's jump into some deck overviews. Up first, we got Siege playing Hogaak, Arisen Necropolis, a deck looking to cast Hogaak as quickly as possible by filling up the grave and casting cheap creatures. He then utilizes the GAC fully by sacrificing it for value and recasting it from the grave thanks to its busted ass abilities. Second is Tom playing Raffine, Scheming Seer, a deck that floods the board with weenies, buffs him up with some 1/1 counters, and then draws and discards a bunch of cards. There's also a suite of Reanimator cards to ensure he gets extra value from said discards. Third is me playing Gyrus, Waker of Corpses, the most underrated Jund commander in my opinion. A deck looking to fill the graveyard quickly, casting Gyrus right after to reanimate some big beaters from the grave, featuring a slew of my favorite cards from Magic history, and also the best color pie in Magic in my opinion. And last but never least is Caps playing Omnath, Locus of Rage, a deck looking to play as many lands as possible to get some sweet landfall triggers, filling up the board with elementals and utilizing them for some massive damage. Without further ado, let's get straight to it. Siege starts the game off with a Terramorphic Expanse, cracking it right away for a forest, putting it into play tapped, then passing. Tom plays a Caves of Koilos and passes. I play a forest, following it up with a Deathrite Shaman, spooking the Siege.
Ooh, don't do that.
Creature Planeswalker.
Start doing that. Start doing that.
He wants you to.
Caps also plays a forest, casting a Burgeoning right after, allowing him to put lands into play when his opponents do, which is kind of like cheating, but it's fine. Turn 2. Siege starts his turn with a Swamp, triggering the Burgeoning. Caps puts into play a Stompy G. Siege then casts a Shigeki Jukai Visionary and passes. Tom jams a Ghost Quarter, again triggering the Burgeoning. Caps puts in a Forest this time. Tom follows this up with an Arcane Signet into a Mystic Remora, ending his turn right after. I go ahead and copy Siege's first 2 land drops and play a Swamp also. Again, the Burgeoning triggers and Caps drops another Forest. I exile the Terramorphic Expanse in Siege's graveyard with my Deathrite Shaman for a mana and tap out to jam a Rotting Regisar. I pass it over to Caps. Caps puts down another Forest to start his turn and then casts a Tiller Engine. Turn 3 time. Oh, Stully, you bastard. Siege leads off with another Swamp, and unfortunately for Caps, he has no more lands for Burgeoning. Siege then drops a Nature's Lore and pays 2 life for an untapped Overgrown Tomb, and passes. At his upkeep, Tom's Mystic Remora cumulative upkeep triggers, and to everybody's dismay, he decides to pay the 1 and keep it around.
What if instead
Upkeep.
of Ren and Stimpy, it was Ren
Pay
and
1.
Stimmy? It was just
Drop
Stimmy.
for the turn.
Or he perpetually got stimulated. What is it? The stimulus checks? Yeah.
Yeah, man.
What was the COVID thing called?
Why are you bringing this up right now?
Because Ren and Stimmy's getting mad Stimmies.
I understand.
He was like, yeah, I fucking
Stimulus
get it, bro.
check.
He follows this up with a tapped Seagate Reborn, opting not to pay 3 life, and then casts a Lightning Greaves. He passes. I untap, and at my upkeep, Rotting Regisar triggers, and I send every red player's favorite discardable card to the graveyard.
Bro, without a mountain discarding the aggro.
Oh my god, he's about to have a mountain.
With Anger in the bin and a mountain for turn, I send my Regisar at the only player with no blockers, much to Tom's dismay.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit Tom.
You're fucking crazy for that one.
You're the only
Target
one who's
acquired.
hoping.
Target acquired. Say your prayers. That graveyard's toast.
I pass. Caps untaps and casts a Dryad of the Elysian Grove. He misses his land drop for the turn, or as Tom so eloquently puts it,
Got no lands left, bro. Shot his wad, dude.
It's true. I got all the lands I need right here.
with no other plays, he passes it over to CJ, who activates Shigeki at Caps' end step, returning it to his hand and finding an obscure storefront from the top 4 of his library, which goes onto the field and immediately sacrifices itself to tutor for a land. He searches for a forest to put onto the battlefield and gain a life. While he's searching, we decide to work on our accents a little bit.
Indubitably. Your Chipotle bowl, Master Wayne.
Your 20-piece McNuggets.
Batman would eat 20 nuggets to the dome.
Alfred. embarrass my own screen.
20 nuggets to the
We'll
dome.
play a swamp.
Siege then starts his turn and puts down a swamp. He poses a question over to me, which prompts a quick lesson in politicking.
Are you eating my graveyard? I
Take
would
a bite,
prefer if
take
you
a bite.
didn't.
I don't
Please don't
know.
take a bite.
It's not even my turn.
Dude,
Why?
we were like,
It's not
CJ,
even my turn,
you gotta
brother.
reframe the way you ask questions. He's instantly back to the, are you gonna fuck me over? If you do, I will kill you.
Yeah, see, we really need to work on your politics in general.
Afterwards, he casts an Outland Deliberator, making it daytime and also our editor very upset.
Oh,
Hey,
come on.
Yeah.
He follows this up by replaying Shigeki, then casts a Diligent Farmhand. In response, I activate the Deathrite Shaman to exile Skull Prophet from Siege's graveyard and gain myself 2 life. Siege then casts Hogaak, Arisen Necropolis, by tapping all his creatures and exiling his entire graveyard. With the Gak waiting to attack on the stack, he passes the turn. Tom leads off by not paying the upkeep cost into his fish, since nobody played any non-creature spells somehow inadvertently for 2 turns. Anyway, he plays a swamp, then casts Brina the Demagogue, sending the playgroup into a tizzy due to Siege having a super scary Brina list himself.
CJ, you ready for this, bro? See how you like it. Brina the Demagogue.
Oh, so sick. I'm already into it.
No!
Tom equips the Gweaves onto Brina, then heads right to combat. He swings the Bing at me, making true on his promise from earlier. Brina triggers on attack, and Tom puts 2 1/1 counters on it, since the ability doesn't target and draws a card. I can't block, so I lose 3 life. In his second main phase, Tom goes ahead and casts a Soul Ring. Then he passes it over to me. I start by discarding a Master of Cruelties to my Rotting Registrar trigger, starting off my turn kind of scaring the table, but hey, nobody look at me, alright? Nothing going on here. I go ahead and enter combat and swing the Registrar at Caps, which triggers Tom's Brina. I draw a card, and Tom puts 2 more 1/1 counters on Brina. Caps does not block and takes 7 damage. In my second main phase, I go ahead and drop a Fiend Artisan, and then I pass it over to Caps. Caps begins and ends his turn with swiftness, just untapping and keeping everything up for potential instant speed shenanigans. Pause. Okay, here we missed that it was turned to night and Siege's Outland Liberator would have been flipped and turned into Frenzied Trap Breaker, whatever. No big deal, alright, considering Siege's upcoming turn, so. Oh, wait, Stella, with the bells. You gotta stop with the bells. At Siege's upkeep, he is posed the $1 million question.
CJ, where are you gonna swing that Hogaak? Or sorry, where are you gonna swing that Hogaak in general?
I would like to draw that card.
Cool. So
Yeah,
then
yeah,
we're cool. We're cool then.
Turns out Brina's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Brina
to
is-
some people.
As soon as
When
she
someone
does
plays
fun.
it.
Wow, I like Brina, man. This is actually a pretty cool play.
Yeah, I'm allowed to do it.
CJ heads right into combat and swings the Gak at me, which triggers Tom's Brina. CJ goes ahead and draws a card, while Tom puts 2 more 1/1 counters on his Brina. I can't block, / I don't want to, and take 8 Gak commander damage to my Dome. In his second main phase, CJ goes ahead and drops an Ooze Garden, following it up with his land for turn, a Tangled Veil, which enters tapped. This triggers Caps' Burgeoning, and he goes ahead and drops a Wooded Foothills into play. Siege then activates the Ooze Garden's ability, sacking the Gak to create an 8/8 Ooze, choosing to put the Gak in the grave. He casts a Gather the Pack, looking at the top 5 of his library to put a creature into his hand and the rest into his yard. Oh, how coincidental. He puts Wood Elves into his hand this way, then exiles his yard he just filled, tapping the Farmhand and the Liberator to pay for the Gak. He is once again back from the yard. With the Gak back in action, he passes it over to Tom. At CJ's end step, Tom casts a Swords to Plowshares, taking 1 life from his Caves of Koilos, targeting the Shigeki. CJ has no response, and Shigeki is exiled while he gains 1 life. Oh, and night turns into day, that's pretty cool. Tom starts off his turn playing an untapped Sunken Ruins as his land, heading right into combat. He sends Brina at CJ, which triggers on attack. Tom draws a card and puts 2 more 1/1 counters on Brina. Siege has no blocks and goes ahead and takes 9 damage.
Caps, can you please quack it?
I could do it at Tom's end stuff, yeah.
That's
my
so
God.
fire.
Dude, let's go.
In his second main phase, Tom casts a Massacre Worm, which triggers when it resolves and enters. All creatures get
-2/-2 until the end of turn.
killing Siege's Diligent Farmhand and Outland Liberator, and unfortunately my Deathrite Shaman, causing CJ to lose 4 life and me to also lose 2 life. Tom then casts an Animate Dead, targeting my Master of Cruelties in my graveyard.
Bro, that Master of Cruelties is scary.
Scary.
I'm gonna animate that.
Oh no. Oh no.
I don't even think I'm gonna swing with it. I just want it out of the fucking game.
With nothing else, the turn gets passed over to me. I lead off my turn by discarding a Crater Hoof to my Registrar trigger. I desperately needed a land, but a Soul Ring is almost the same thing, so we go ahead and jam that right away for a Solemn Simulacrum. As it resolves, I find a swamp to put onto the battlefield tapped. I think about whether or not to feed Tom's bird, and I decide, yeah, let's give him some chow, and I go ahead and send the Registrar Caps. I draw a card while Tom puts 2 1/1 counters onto the Master of Cruelties this time. Caps has no blocks and takes 7 more damage. In my second main phase, I drop a Raging Ravine as my land for the turn and pass it over to Caps, who cracks his Wooded Foothills at my end step for a Cinder Glade, which enters untapped.
Don't feel bad about attacking your opponents. After all, they are your opponents.
We're also friends.
Not in the multiverse. We're not. There are some universes where we've never even met each other.
Yeah, I don't wanna
And
think about
those
that.
are the worst universes.
Yeah,
It's the
they-
worst
that-
timeline.
Harambe is probably alive though, so maybe.
Who's probably alive?
I said Harambe's probably alive.
That's what I'm saying.
True, man.
Caps leads off with a Valakut Exploration, following that up with a Ratchet Bomb.
You want to pick that up to 2 for me, boss?
He then passes it over to CJ to start good old turn 6, otherwise known as the turn where shit starts to get real. It's all gas, no brakes here, ladies and gentlemen. CJ goes right into combat, sends the Gak at Tom, and the 8/8 ooze right at me. Brina triggers from the attack at me, and Tom puts 2 counters onto Massacre Worm while CJ draws a card. I very much willingly block with my Solemn, and Tom blocks with my Master of Cruelties. Thanks to the first strike and death touch on Master, you're welcome. Hogaak dies before he can trample over, but my Solemn isn't as lucky, getting oozed and dying. Both creatures dying triggers Tom's Massacre Worm, losing myself and CJ 2 life apiece. Luckily though, I do draw a card from Solemn dying with honor. In his second main phase, CJ casts a Winding Way, choosing creature as it resolves. He reveals the top 4 cards and gets a Soldevi Adnate, which goes into his hand and the rest go into his graveyard. He casts a Wood Elves and searches for a Woodland Chasm for the battlefield when it enters, following it up with the Soldevi Adnate. And you'll never guess what he does next. Oh my god, he delves and then he convokes, and what do you know, the Gak is back from the yard and he's ready to attack. Next turn, anyway, for now, he passes it over to Tom. He goes ahead and casts Raffine, Scheming Seer, right after he starts his turn.
And once it resolves, he equips the Greaves onto it.
Siphon Mind is then dropped, and CJ, Caps, and I all discard 1 while Tom draws 3. He goes straight to combat and sends the Massacre Worm at me, Brina at CJ, and Raffine at Caps. Brina triggers 2 times for the swing at CJ and I since Caps has a lower life total than us, and Tom puts 4 1/1 counters onto Raffine and draws 2 times. Raffine also triggers, but Tom misses it for now. Does his conniving during my turn, so we opt to just disregard the damage that would have been added to the attack. It's no big deal. No one blocks, so Siege takes 9, I take 8, and Caps takes 5. In his second main phase, he plays a Seachrome Coast as his land for the turn, which comes into play tapped. He then casts a Skull Clamp and moves the Lightning Weaves over to the Master of Cruelties.
What trigger?
Not a trigger.
Greaves on Master, Greaves on Brina, Greaves on Master, Greaves on Brina, Greaves on Massacre, Greaves on Raffine.
I untap and discard an Entomb to my Registrar trigger. I tap out for Gyrus, where X equals 4, and I put 7 +1/+1 counters onto it when he enters.
Swing at a Tom. I mean, Caps and CJ got the rest, I'm sure. To be completely honest.
What do you mean? I just die.
No, dude. You swing at Tom, and then CJ takes care of the rest. He's got an 8/8 trampler right there.
Yeah, but he swings at me, just kills me, and then he dies.
Right.
No.
After much internal deliberation, I decide to hang back for this turn and pass it over to Caps. Caps untaps and begins with a Forest, triggering the Valakut Exploration, which exiles a Life's Legacy off the top of his library. He casts it from exile right away, sacking his Dryad of the Elysian Grove to draw 2 cards. This triggers Tom's Massacre Worm for 2 damage to Caps. Unfortunately, he doesn't really seem to draw much, so he decides to pass it over to CJ.
Oh, my own. You tell me no 5/5s, and then you deal me nothing. The boss is going to be furious.
CJ untaps, and we decide to chat a bit about the state of the game.
He's crazy. You should tell him.
I like Raffine, I don't like
I
Brina.
should tell him.
You should tell him.
Brina made this game not fun.
We'll play a Forest Return.
I disagree. I think it's good.
I disagree. I don't like Hogaak.
Yeah,
What do you
Hogaak always
mean?
scares the fuck out of me, dude.
I like the loops that
It's
Hogaak
like
is doing.
whatever
At least his
he's
deck
doing.
is doing what he's doing.
Nah, Brina was
Yeah.
chill this game, honestly.
Tom plays Hogaak next game. Yeah, Hogaak's pretty cool, honestly. I like Hogaak.
CJ plays a land, triggering Caps' Burgeoning, and Caps puts a forest into play, triggering his Valakut Exploration, which exiles an Oracle of Moldiah. CJ then goes right into combat and sends Hogaak and the 8/8 Ooze at Tom, while the Wood Elves go at Caps. Rena triggers on attack, so Tom puts 2 1/1 counters onto Raffine, and CJ draws a card. Before blockers are declared, Caps drops a Nature's Claim, targeting the Animate Dead on the Master of Cruelties. It resolves, the Animate Dead is destroyed, and Master of Cruelties goes back into the safe haven of my graveyard.
If you had told me that, Caps, I would have
Well,
killed him.
before blocks.
See, CJ, the way you just said I would have killed him makes me. This is why I always will kill you, because like, you're always like, no, you don't need to be afraid of my deck. But then I look at a clearly non-lethal board with not much going on, and you're like, I could have killed him this turn if you had only told me. And I'm like, bro, what does he mean? I gotta kill him now.
Caps and Tom don't block, and Caps takes 1, and Tom takes 16. In his second main phase, CJ activates the Ooze Garden, sacking the Gak to create yet another 8/8 Ooze token and putting the Gak in the yard. This triggers Massacre Worm, and CJ loses 2 more life. For the first time this entire game, CJ is unable to cast the Gak, so he passes the turn. Tom leads off with a Siren Storm Tamer and follows that up with an Archfiend of Ifnir. He then equips the Lightning Greaves onto it, and in response, CJ casts an Infernal Grasp, targeting Raffine and paying the 1 for its ward cost.
Okay,
Siren
after you
Storm
pay the
Tamer.
1, then I'm gonna sack the Siren Storm Tamer and counter that.
Okay.
The equip resolves, and Tom heads right into combat. He sends Brina at CJ, Massacre Worm at Caps, and Raffine and the Archfiend of Ifnir at me. Raffine triggers once, and Brina triggers 2 times. Tom draws 2 cards and puts 2 counters on Brina and 2 on Raffine. Raffine targets itself to connive 4, while Tom draws 4 cards and discards 4 non-lands, putting 4 more counters onto Raffine. The discard also triggers the Archfiend of Ifnir 4 times, putting 4 -1/-1 counters on each creature. This kills both the Soldevi Adnate and Wood Elves on CJ's board, causing him to lose 4 life from the 2 Massacre Worm triggers, and Caps loses his Tiller Engine, causing him to also lose 2 life from the Massacre Worm. Blocks are then declared, where CJ has none, takes 11, and then he fucking dies. Caps also has no blockers, losing 8, and I also don't block, taking 18. In his second main phase, Tom drops a Null Priest of Oblivion just to add insult to injury, and passes it over to me, who's barely hanging on. I untap and discard a Vengevine to the Registrar trigger. I cast a Noxious Gearhulk, targeting the Null Priest of Oblivion, destroying it and gaining me a life. I enter combat and send Gyrus at Tom, which triggers on attack. I bring back my Master of Cruelties, which I also send at Tom. Noxious Gearhulk, Rotting Registrar, and Fiend Artisan all go at Caps. We head into the Declare Blocker step, and Master of Cruelties triggers, seeing no blocks and putting Tom at 1 life before damage. Damage is then applied, and I manage to take out both Caps and Tom in 1 swing, ending in a sneaky victory for my guy Gyrus. I mean, wow, what a game. CJ gacked all over everybody, looping the gack over and over again every turn. Tom was a conniving little snoop and managed to take over the board rapidly before we could even realize. Unfortunately, Caps blew his load a little early, ramped out super hard before he lost all his momentum, but I mean, hey, we've all been there, am I right? Ultimately, me and my guy Gyrus junded him out and managed to take the dub, even after missing a few land drops and kind of dirtling there in the mid game. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far in the video, we really appreciate you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to tune in for some soulmates coming to you live in the future. Peace.